The police wouldn't know what they were up against. The threat of dark forces wasn't something any of them were exactly going to take seriously, was it? To them, this was the case of a young girl who apparently existed but was not officially registered, and that was it. In the cold light of day, the facts were hard ones. A police officer had been assaulted and left for dead in the vicinity of Wood's End, and the image of a young girl had been caught on that officer's mobile phone during the attack. That was what they were working on. The rest, Becky thought, presented a vague, albeit disturbing picture, but only if you put all the jigsaw pieces together. And would they? Somehow she thought not. For example, few had believed Ruby even had a real daughter. Not surprising, really, when you considered Ruby was a mental health patient with dozens of different personalities. Who was to say Alice wasn't yet another of her alters, just like her sister Marie had turned out to be? When Ruby had attacked local man Paul Dean in Wood's End 2 years ago, there hadn't been a single person who even recognised her. She was just a madwoman, said the locals, no one they knew, substantiated by the fact there were no school or GP records for her in the area. Even Ruby herself was clueless as to who she was or where she'd come from. The police had subsequently wrapped up the case, and Ruby had been duly incarcerated in a secure unit at Drummersgate Hospital, where she remained. The fact that everyone who had then tried to help Ruby had suffered a serious psychological or physical repercussion would be seen by any rational person as pure coincidence. Unless you've experienced it yourself, Becky thought. Unless you've been to hell and back, you wouldn't even contemplate another, darker reality. So what was real then? What could she honestly say to the investigating police officer due in later this morning? That Dr. Jack McGowan had hypnotised a mentally disturbed woman and was now a shell of a man back home with his parents in Ireland, instead of the medical director, top psychiatrist and family man he was just over a month ago? That she herself had witnessed Ruby's bizarre, demonic behaviour during the hypnosis and subsequently been persecuted by a hallucination which threatened her sanity until she was physically dragged into a church? That dissociative identity disorder specialist Dr. Christy Silver was now sectioned in Laurel Lawn's private hospital under the Mental Health Act, and steady, reliable social worker Martha Kind, who had gone to investigate matters in Wood's End, had collapsed and died suddenly, as had her predecessor. Hardly police business. What could they do about any of that? Now, though, at last there was something concrete to go on. Photographic evidence that a young girl really did exist in Wood's End without any registration at the school or with the GP, exactly as Ruby claimed. Assuming she was Ruby's daughter, of course, which would no doubt be contested. But there would be Callum's testimony too, when he woke up, all of which the Deans would be aware of. Not that the Deans per se frightened her personally. They were a pretty nasty bunch of abusive, child-molesting men who could be caught, surely. It was the other stuff, intelligently targeted towards the very fabric of your sanity and sense of self, sent to dismantle your humanity and plummet you into an isolated world of fear and depression, madness and confusion, ultimately designed to leave you helpless in a mental health unit, trying to explain that it was real to people who simply wouldn't and couldn't believe you. "What time's T.S. Hall coming in again?" she asked Toby. They both looked at the clock. 3:51 a.m. "Sid, first thing, it'll be just after 6. Toby broke off as the room suddenly plummeted into coal-face blackness. Not a single thing was visible, and for a moment the two of them sat in stunned silence. A shiver crawled up her spine, as if someone had crept up behind her, and Becky lunged for the bedside lamp, just as a sneering, mocking voice shouted loudly into her ear, "Well, howdy, little sister. Long time no see." She leapt from the chair, knocking things over in her rush to the door. It was jammed, and a panicky voice she realised was her own called out. It was happening again. Yes, it was. The same thing. Oh, God! Someone on the other side rattled the handle, and from the black interior it was possible to make out the silhouette of a man. Behind him, the night nurse. All of them pushed and pulled at the door for what seemed like several minutes, until suddenly it gave way, and the nightlight flicked back on. "Flamin' hell," said Toby, the colour drained from his face. "What happened there?" Becky slumped back down, sitting on her hands so no one could see them shaking. "I don't know. Wedge the door open, will you, Toby?" He stood towering over her, motionless. "And then go and get us some coffees, eh? We're as spooked as..."